Boom! Salutations. Want to talk about, this is a part 2, alright, to another video I had done over the Chupacabras. By the way, I hope everybody out there is doing good too. This is going to be a part 2 to a video I did over the Chupacabra. And the reason why I want to do this is because about a couple weeks ago, I should have put down the date that the episode it was. I did an episode of Jessica Jones' remote viewing investigations, and I gave her the Chupacabra as a blind target. I just want to see what she got out of it, definitely. And there was a couple of reasons I wanted to do this. One is I wanted to cross-reference this with the original, the Chupacabra target I gave her was actually the original Chupacabra, the original sketch, which is actually the background behind me. So you can look at that and see what all it is and everything. But that is, when I first heard about the Chupacabra, it was in 1995 on Art Bell. And then that's in the era when you could actually go and get magazines still at like Barnes and Nobles and Borders. I would get all these interesting magazines that were paranormal, cryptid stuff. And one of them was called, it was either UFO Magazine or Nexus. It was one of them that had actually a picture of the Chupacabra on there because it was on Art's website. But I'm sorry to tell you, in 1995, it wasn't that easy to get on the computer and look that stuff up. It wasn't anything like it is now. It was pre-Wi-Fi and pre-all that. But I saw that this sketch behind me was actually in that magazine. And that's how the original Chupacabra was reported to look. And some things about it that changed later when you see Monster Quest and things like that, they changed it into looking like a dog. And this type of a dog that looked like it was suffering from mange to a degree. And all these things I've seen of that type of Chupacabra, as I said in the other video as reference, I think are a thylacine, otherwise known as the Tasmanian tiger. And that they're not actually extinct, and there were certain like foundations or groups of people that were trying to save the Tasmanian tiger. So I think that's what we're seeing there is a thylacine. But that's not the original Chupacabra. And how much that got twisted from the original Puerto Rican descriptions, all right? A couple of things about it, as you see behind me, is it was reported to hop around almost like a kangaroo. It appeared to have kangaroo ability, genetics. And also it was reported to be a marsupial the first times, all right? And then on top of that, it was reported to have these webs between its arms. And I think this on this sketch behind me, that might not be present, but just these little webs. And when I saw the other sketches of it and the way it was described, it reminded me of Spider-Man. The Spider-Man when I was a kid, the comic books, those older ones, he had these webs between his arms. And it was supposed to be to help him glide or something. But anyway, so that's another thing. So that's another genetic mix dealing with this Chupacabra as well. And it had something that's called Probosics, which is the same thing that mosquitoes have, which is ejects apparatus and it sucks things up. You know what I mean? Sucks you up. For those of us that remember The Fly when I was younger, Brundlefly, Jeff Goldblum, Brundle-Fly. He couldn't eat solids, so he had to digest by... Anyway, seriously, it's Probosics, though, is what these Chupacabras had also. And I find that very interesting, along with the hypnotic trance it's putting people in. It was very, very intense, apparently. So that's the goat sucker. But later on, it started to be reporting as being these flying creatures and other things that seemed to slightly deviate from the first reports. Now, why I'm bringing this up too, and why I want to do the three-way data reference on this, is that, and also I had Jessica Jones remote view this target. She nailed it, all right? And also on my channel, and I'll put this in the comments and also in the descriptions, a video I did with John Vivanco and this snake guy, backstabber, but John Vivanco was a part of this too, and we did this video. We discussed the Chupacabra at about 39:08, right around 39 minutes on that video. Check it out. The reason why we did that and discussed that is because he had put that as, I believe, a blind target for his team and his remote viewing team. And what they saw was fascinating, all right? What he said that there was a hurricane in Puerto Rico that had destroyed this part of this laboratory, and these things escaped. And the first things that they were seeing when they were remote viewing this as a real creature is that once the baby comes out of the pouch, the marsupial pouch, the baby comes out, the mother tries to hunt it down and kill it and eat it or something. So that's just something that he said, and that sounds like an abomination. All right, definitely. But that's what he had seen on this. Now with Jessica Jones, check out that show, and in her data also, she has things about this flood, about similar to a hurricane. And if you look actually, technically in 1994, Puerto Rico was hit with a tropical storm Debbie. And in 1995, which is the same year that the Chupacabra was really starting to be reported, multiple reports that year, it really went crazy. There was a thing that hit Puerto Rico called Hurricane Marilyn. So you can look that up. And for those of you listening to me that really like to dig and like to research, get in there and you can pull up some of these places when you start actually pulling up what type in genetics in Puerto Rico, and you start getting these names like Genetic Science Laboratory, Quest Diagnostics, Blueprint Genetics. Where are these places? Did any of them been around since 95? Did any of them take damage during the hurricane? Just food for thought, okay? And I say that because when Jessica hit the same things that John did, and she had no idea what this was. And that would be the flood. Also, she kept saying Chimera, and that's not too far either, and mammal. And most importantly, what really intrigued me, all right, the first thing Jessica Jones kept saying is on this data is dinosaurs. She kept getting dinosaurs. And I mean, that came through Prime. So that's another genetic we're dealing with, definitely. Another thing important she picked up on, because I had heard this target was Chupacabra and its origin, whatever its origin, that's what these coordinates were. And not just this flood place, laboratory type place, but also meteorites and Mars. She picked that up in the data. So that might take us to some of these genetics I've talked about that come in here on these meteors. And we've got this laboratory where these genetics are being done. So we've got a creature that's a splice of what looks like some type of gray genetics, extraterrestrial genetics, the grays, possibly kangaroo, all right, insectoid of some type. That must be why it has probosics. And also, on top of that, kangaroo, possible kangaroo genetics. I mean, and when you look at really the dinosaurs, all right, the dinosaurs were birds. They're of avian descent to a degree. They were bird-like. And if you look at the right behind me, look at this thing's arms and hands. Those look like chicken feet to me to a degree. So I'm just saying, you know what I mean? But that's an abomination. This thing is an abomination. And this laboratory, that keeps coming up in all these targets that I've given Jessica, these different type of big brother, I don't want to say the G word, laboratories. They're doing these genetic experiments. You know, that these abominations, this has been going on. We're talking about these factories that these dark forces have been running since biblical times. This isn't something new. It's been going on a long time. These genetic splices have been walking around this planet and popping up all the time. So this isn't anything new. Anyway, quick wrap this up. You know, that's most of it there. And looking at the dinosaur aspect of this, I might be looking at dinosaurs for over an hour and something, trying to figure out which dinosaur this might be that has even that type of fingers that comes to Allosaurus and things like that. So I don't know, and I keep picking up the ones that, like on Jurassic Park, the little ones that were in the canal that were tearing that dude up versus just one of them. He's knocking them off, and there's going to be like 20, 30 of them, 50 of them, just ate them up. You know, little carnivores like that might be one of the genetics that's involving this thing. But I thought that it brought genetics of dinosaurs into it. very fascinating, along with Mars, some type of material coming from Mars, genetics coming from Mars. So this is really interesting. It's food for thought, all right? And I think that it's valuable because, again, this is 3 different sources targeting one target. And that's this Chupacabra, the original. That's everything I want to convey. I want to say thank you to everybody that supports me, especially Patreon people that really the reason these videos are being made. And a lot of people are starting to comment on this channel and starting to put a like on there, share these videos. Please keep doing it. Hit that bell again so you get notified when I put stuff out. So they're starting to turn people off doing that again. So much appreciation to everybody. God bless it.